Hello and welcome to Stories with Maya's Amma. This is episode 2. I'm sure this can be controversial, but through this podcast, we are giving a public service announcement to parents because even in a friendship, you are giving me feedback about no, that didn't make me feel good. Yeah, that behavior of yours is irritating. மனிதர் உணர்ந்து கொள்ள இது காதல் அல்ல kind of relationship only everybody is expecting. கல்யாணம்னா ஒரு தடவை தான் இருக்கணும் ஆர் காதல்னா ஒரே ஒரு தடவை தான் காதல் எல்லாம் உணரணும் அந்த மாதிரியான கிராப்பி ஐடியாலஜிஸ் இஃப் யூ மேரி திஸ் பர்சன் ஐ வில் டை தூக்கு தொங்கிருப்பேன் பண்ணணும் புத்தி கொடுத்திடுவேன் all that yeah so yeah talking about kalyanam marriage again another big issue that youngsters come up with is as you said they are children in adult bodies and they are throwing major tantrums. Hello and welcome to Stories with Maya's Amma. This is episode 2, and I once again have my bestie Goda Haripriya with me, parenting coach. Goda, today we're going to talk about one of the most painful and most important and hottest area young people focus on, which is relationships. That too, right before marriage. What is happening in my relationship? Is this a situationship? Is this a textuationship? Have you heard of it?
No.
These new things are all coming up. Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is going on? How do we navigate our relationship challenges, career challenges along with relationship challenges, family challenges along with relationship challenges? How do I talk to my family members? Because I think to a large extent, families are getting okay to accept love marriages.
Yes, yes.
I think in our generation, the acceptance level was very bad,
Very, very bad.
poor, pathetic. Yeah.
Yes.
But today that's getting better. But even then, in a lot of places, there is a lot of resistance because even today I get DMs from young people saying, ma'am, my parents are not allowing because my boyfriend or girlfriend is of a different religion, different caste. I'm like, today also? Oh my God. Different financial status. So, how do I navigate it? How do I convince them? How do I make them approve of us? Or even in our relationship, we have a certain, concern. Whom do we go to? We are not ready to seek marital counseling because we are not married.
Married.
Right. Otherwise, whom do we go to? Is it okay to just go to a general psychologist, personal psychologist? Because there's personal issue, right? But there is that block. So I think we need to talk about some basics that youngsters can think about when it comes to relationships. So first thing, what do we not prepare ourselves when it comes to relationships? And when I was thinking of this particular topic, what is that one thing that youngsters need to prepare, or what are we not prepared about? I think one thing is that we are not used to relationships in teenage. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a taboo thing to do, no? It's immediately thought of as a no. You can't have a crush. You can't be infatuated. You can't even talk about,
Yeah.
these things with your parents or somebody elder to you. In
Yeah.
our society, it's something that's a big no.
Yeah, definitely. In India, at least, young love, that to teen love, is not accepted, not normalized. But that doesn't mean it's not happening.
Absolutely.
Everywhere teenagers are falling in love.
Everywhere.
And I think one point that I always say in my sex ed classes is that we underestimate teenage relationships a lot. We think it's puppy love.
Yeah.
We think it's passing cloud. But a lot of our own friends that are married and settled with a lot of children could have been high school sweethearts, right?
Yeah.
So teenagers do feel very strongly to each other. That whole thing is not normalized in our society, though it's definitely happening secretly. I think in teenage, if we get a little bit more, I'm sure this can be controversial, but if we get a little bit more acceptance to explore relationships, at least on a superficial level, right? We get to know what we like, what the other person likes, what we don't like, what kind of an approach is okay, not okay, what kind of conversations are okay, not okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Certain kinds of boundaries and all you can learn during teenage. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think personally, my first love or my teenage love has shaped me to be who I am today.
Yeah.
Given me some really strong values, my preferences, all of that. I think even for you, for that matter.
I have not had a teenage love.
You have
Goda.
not?
No.
Oh my God.
I've had crushes, but
Okay,
I have not had a proper relationship. Yeah.
Okay.
Boys were not my type or
Oh,
something like
okay.
that. Somehow I couldn't connect with any of the boys in my peer group.
Okay.
So I have not had a teenage romance per
Okay.
se. I have had crushes to people, but that time, you know what I used to think? Only I am having this, nobody else is having this issue. Because when I see everybody is so studious and they're all very pakka and all of that. So you can't even really open up about, see, I like this person. You cannot even open up, right? I think that was the situation back in our
Our
days.
days, yeah,
I
yeah.
think these days teenagers and all are a bit open about
Yeah, more cool,
liking
more
each
open.
other. Yeah.
Only thing the parents need to be more open. Anyway, teenagers are having these conversations between them.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly for us, to know what we like personally.
Yeah.
More than being in a relationship, what are my preferences? None of us really have that space to
Explore ourselves.
Yeah, explore
Yeah,
ourselves. And to think about, when you're getting into a marriage, how many of us really have that conversation or have that awareness about, what kind of childcare do I want to give? What quality of life do I want to have? What about the financial management? How many of us as, adults today, at least in our early 20s, have clarity about that? We don't have that because we've not been, in the teenage years, we were not really thinking about those things. And in
Plus,
teenage,
one more thing is parents are the ones who always take decisions for everything. No,
yeah.
we don't get even basic decision making
Yeah.
skills.
Till you're married, and then suddenly you have to have everything figured out. There is no space to fall, trial and error, to make mistakes, figure out. All of that is not there. And since we have not really explored the emotional part during our teenage,
Yeah.
we're doing that during the
Marriage.
initial years of marriage,
Yeah.
where we should be actually figuring out practical things,
Exactly.
not the deep emotional things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think more teenage romances,
Yeah,
or at least young adulthood romances should be encouraged.
encouraged.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes.
think that will be a
Yeah.
good training ground because during teenage or let's say late teenage, the only thing that everyone wants to focus is academics. Only focus on academics because
Settling
if you
down.
get into a relationship, then that will be a big distraction.
Distraction.
So only do your academic. For that matter, even sports and all. No, people stop
Yeah.
for a lot of teenagers.
study.
Yeah, just to sit and study. So I think if we get that space where we can explore relationships as well along with it, I think that's a good training ground because in life you have to do all these things together only. No,
Yeah. As
who,
an
who
adult.
will call you into adulthood and say that okay, now you're focusing on relationship, don't go for work. Or now you're only working, don't focus on and I think that is one reason why a lot of adults are not able to focus on relationships when they're working
Working. Yeah.
because they're only able to focus on one
One
thing.
thing.
Yeah. So I think through this podcast we are giving a public service announcement
To parents, because otherwise teenagers are
anyway doing it. Yeah. Might as well they can come and talk to you and then go do whatever they
that
want.
space is what you always talk about in your classes. That
Yes.
space with that parents to have open conversations clears a lot of things for teenagers. That takes away that pressure, no? Like I, as a teenager, remember having so many things on my head.
Yeah.
So much of pressure, no? To manage so many. Anyway, we manage so many things.
Yes.
Late teens, I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So then if there was a support, if there was a person I can, share this
Rely
with,
on.
process it with, it would have made my life
Much
so
easier,
much more
definitely,
easier.
definitely. And talking about relationships, Goda, today in the whole feminism scenario, where we always keep talking about men and women, equality. I think we are really confused about what men and women really are. We have got to a level where I think we need to teach people that men and women are actually different.
Yeah.
It's a very new concept for a lot of people today because of this constant conversations about equality, right?
Yeah.
Men and women are equal, but they are not the same.
We keep
Yeah.
talking
We
about this.
keep talking about this all the time because in parenting also it comes up, no?
a lot.
So one thing I want to clear up with the audience is that yes, biologically we are different, but in what way are we different? So one is definitely brain wise, we are different.
Differently wired.
And I think recently, Dr. Daniel Amen, a psychiatrist, he spoke about the world's largest brain imaging study that was done in his clinic. He evaluated 46,000 SPECT scans. Yeah. Not one of the largest, the largest study. Yeah. 46,000 brain scans. They published a study from his clinic. And some 6-7 points they have mentioned as the top points. Okay. Of course, there is a lot more, but these 6-7 points, most of it is stuff that we've already known. Okay, see, I'll tell you what. One was that women's brains are more busier when it comes to decision making. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do evaluate from many angles before taking a decision, whereas in male brain, it's more of a localized effort. Decision making.
Okay.
So overall, women's brains are more busier. Yeah, that was one which we already knew,
no,
right?
yeah.
Another one was also something that we knew. The prefrontal cortex in the male brain is sleepier. That's the word that they've used.
Okay,
Sleepier.
sleepier.
So prefrontal cortex is in charge of planning, decision making, judgments, impulse control, and maybe that's why in a male brain, there is more of a risk taking behavior, right? Because it's more, it doesn't work as amazingly well as a female brain maybe, but we all take decisions in our own ways. It's not like women are the only amazing decision makers, because you need to use your common sense there. Nobody is telling that women are better. It's just that they're using their brains in a different way.
They're built that way.
Yeah. Another point that they came up with was also something that we've already known. The emotional area in the women's brain, is more active. There's more activity happening there. So that also we knew already, right? So they are better at nurturing, better at being emotionally vulnerable. But that doesn't mean, again, apply common sense. That doesn't mean men are bad at nurturing children. That doesn't mean men are bad at emotionally getting vulnerable. It only means that they need to probably put in more efforts in doing something that the other person might naturally be good at. That's all. Same goes with women also. Like visual spatially also, male brain is better, it seems, direction wise. I mean, in my family it's slightly different.
I know.
I'm really good at directions, but yeah, I mean, visual spatially male brain is better.
Actions? They are more action oriented,
definitely,
more
definitely.
productive.
Yeah. So a lot of these things that are coming up called empirical evidence was something that we have already known
through experience.
and nothing means somebody is better, somebody is not better. It only means that we take decisions differently. We act differently. And in women's brains, a certain part of the brain, which is kind of like a gear shifter, kind of brings the attention to a negative thing or an error or something that is wrong, that is more activated. So
we
always seeing
pinpoint-
problems, always worrying. So that doesn't mean men don't worry. It only means men worry differently than women. So I think these basic things like brain-wise, what is different, or hormonally.
Hormonally.
We always talk about it, right?
Yeah. See, for example, men have a 24-hour testosterone cycle.
Yeah,
So their
hormonal
cycle is 24 hours.
Yeah.
For a woman, it's a 28-day
28
menstrual cycle.
Yeah,
And we have 4 phases in that.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate more because that's your
because
job.
this is also something that many people don't realize. I mean, we have studied our biology, basic biology, but certain things are not elaborated. So men, they wake up with a testosterone surge in the morning, and during the day, it just wanes. So it's very high in the morning, in the midday. By evening, it comes down. Then they just have to sleep and wake up, and it's again up and running.
Yeah.
Right. For a woman, the only testosterone surge that she's getting is during her ovulation. And that is why women are not sexually aroused all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
there are certain phases in her menstrual cycle where she is having more libido, less libido, more productivity, less productivity. So we have our follicular phase and our, ovulation phase and our luteal phase, and then we have our periods. So all four phases we're very different.
Very. Our
Yeah,
moods
our
are
voices
different.
are different.
Yeah.
Studies have come up and said our brain is going through a complete shift after every menstrual cycle. Productivity levels, energy levels, mental health.
Exactly like the moon.
Yeah.
It's not the same every day.
Yeah, it's not the
every day
same.
it's a different moon
Yeah,
that you
so
see.
when people, say bracket statements like women, they're so difficult to figure out, they're very complicated and all, that's because we haven't taken time and effort to understand her. That's all.
Yeah.
If we understand her, it's not simple, but it's manageable.
It's
Right.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And even for a woman, for that matter, how many women have really understood themselves?
Their own cycles. Yeah.
Because at any given point of time, we need to be able to tell very clearly what part of the cycle we are in, right? I think we can have a whole different episode about
Definitely.
the menstrual cycle, how to
health.
track it and stuff like that. Yeah, so we'll talk about in a different episode. But this is what we're trying to say: brain wise, hormonally,
Physically
yeah,
also.
yeah,
we're very
biologically, there's a lot of difference. And what can we learn from this?
this impacts how we see relationships, no? Even our basic interaction, our
Yeah.
conflicts.
Yeah,
A woman might see a conflict very differently from how a man might see it. And
Yeah.
without understanding these differences, we'll think it's like the hugest problem.
Yeah,
But it might
yeah.
just be something that would pass
because
away.
by nature, if we are worriers, right?
Yeah,
If we
yeah.
keep worrying all the time,
Yeah.
then, or if our brain is more wired to worrying, then we can't be upset when our man is not worried about something.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm so worried. You don't seem to be bothered.
Bothered.
Right.
Yeah.
These
You're so detached.
Yeah.
You're so unemotional.
Yeah.
All of those, layers come up after that. And I'm thinking, what, if we play by the design, wouldn't it be so much more easier than fighting? You worry. Going and telling a man, you worry. You be more emotional. You're trying to make a 24-hour cycle into a 28-day cycle, right? It might not work like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
understanding and playing by the design can actually become a beautiful strength for the couple.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What we see as differences are actually like a jigsaw puzzle coming together. It'll make the whole picture more beautiful.
Yeah.
If only we understood that it's a puzzle that is meant to fit together, not be the same. If you're the same, you won't fit in.
Yeah, yeah. So we're very different, and we need to know how to work with those differences.
Exactly.
Not try to say that, we are equal, we are the same, we are the same. We are equal. We need to be treated equally. We need to have equal opportunities.
Yes.
All that is there, but we are really not the same.
Same. We can't.
And we are not meant to be the same. Okay, I forgot to mention in the first episode that I call you G.
Okay.
Okay, so people, I call her G, okay. Right. Anyway, moving forward. So, G, understanding our biology, understanding our hormones, all that can help, yes. But there's also something that all of us carry into a relationship, which are these emotional baggages from childhood. It can be an inner child wound that we are having. It can be an attachment pattern that we have set with our parents that we have brought into our relationship. It can be a bodily insecurity that we have been having all the time, and that can impact the quality of relationship that you're having. So, being a parenting educator, when you take classes to parents and when they're like, this is wrong with my child, that is wrong with my child, and eventually after the class they realize, oh my God, there's such a lot of work that I need to do in myself, on myself. So, what are some of those patterns that we carry from childhood, and how does that impact adult relationships?
I think a big part of who we are as adults is determined by our childhood. I think all of us have kind of a basic
amount of understanding. Yeah,
about that. But there was one interesting ideology that I read about. Okay. So this author says that the person we are in a relationship with strongly resembles the parent that we have the most conflict with.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, while growing up, who we had a lot of conflict with or who we didn't really feel very attached to, we might be in a relationship with a person very similar to that particular parent.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
And going on, the author says that that's because life is giving us a second chance to rework, to do the work again. But now we have the resources, we have the age, we are an adult now. As a child, we might not have been able to, say the things or stand up the way that we have wanted to or ask for things in a way that we wanted to. Simply because we are a child.
Right.
But now as an adult, when we are given a second opportunity, how are we going to work on that particular aspect.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that brought in a lot of clarity to me in
Yeah.
my relationships. Okay, so this is a space where I am made aware of my wounds, of my conflicts, of my attachment styles. So when talking about attachment styles, say for example, you grew up in a family. This is just for example. Say for example, you grew up in a family where during a conflict, there's always a lot of screaming. There is always a lot of fighting and yelling.
Right.
And as a child, you might have withdrawn
Right.
from the conflict just to protect yourself from all that screaming and
Right.
yelling. So that means that you moved away. You became a little away from the conflict. You stepped back from the conflict. And that has been your habit.
Okay.
I won't even say pattern, just a habit. Like when there is a conflict, I step away to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
Okay. And I might have grown up in a family where a conflict means people become silent. Okay. And I could have, while growing up, I could have tried and spoken to my parents a lot, try and go and attach to them, saying, look at me, see me. I would have been somebody who was trying to connect with my parents because they are moving away.
Right.
So now that is my habit. When I see a conflict, I am trying to go close. And you are somebody who's
withdrawing from it. Yeah.
So now imagine if these two people come together in a relationship.
Mostly they are the ones who get married.
Absolutely, no?
Yeah.
So now it's like cat and mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, one person is, when there's a conflict, one person is trying to attach and
Yeah.
one person is getting scared and moving away.
Yeah.
And this person who's, attaching feels like, oh, this person is moving away, and this person who's moving away feels like, why is she attacking? Yeah, there's so much of conflict.
Yeah.
So this is how our childhood habits, patterns affect us in our relationship today. So this is just one small example, okay, which could happen in a relationship.
Yeah.
So
I think the topmost thing that everybody needs to focus on, because from that 0 to 7 or 0 to 8 or even till preteens, we see our parents, how they deal with a conflict, and that must be our reference point when it comes to, oh, this is what happens during conflicts. You fight with each other like cats and dogs, or you go silent for the next 3 days, right? And in our parents also, there must have been the same dynamic where one person tells a sorry and then they go cook food and give the other person, and the other person like all that,
Yeah.
right? So one other aspect that struck me, G, is the extrovert introvert dynamic in a relationship.
Very basic, but
Very
something
basic.
that's so misunderstood, no?
Exactly, because I've been taking this behavior psychology class for like 15, 16 years now. I've been focusing on people's behavior for so long. It's so evident. It's so brutally
On the face, no?
it's so visual. You can see, like, if a couple comes in front of me, within a few seconds, I can just quickly tell who's the extroverted one, who's the introverted one. Yes, there are ambiverts among us, but even in ambiverts, there are people who show more of an extroversion versus more of an introversion. So even in that ambivert, I am more this, I'm more that. So it's always like that. So that can impact not the quality, I would say, the day-to-day struggles in a relationship wherein one person feels like, I am the one who's always expressive, I'm the one who's talking, the other person is always quiet, or I'm very meticulous and very organized and very I plan things very well, but then my partner is always very spontaneous and very impulsive, and that is really driving me nuts. Or we can have one person who is getting very angry very often, and the other person is very calm and very quiet, and they just feel like this person is screaming all the time, and this person will be like, I'm standing right in front of you, why are you screaming? You can talk softly, right? And the other person cannot talk soft. Or there's one person who is a party animal who wants to go out all the time and socialize, and the other person is very laid back, and they just want to be home during weekends, and that can cause a clash. So these things are not major issues to begin with, but over a period of time, what happens if this basic understanding of behavior psychology is not, see, for that matter, everybody cannot go and attend psychology classes or become degree holders in psychology, but basic understanding, oh, okay, this is why my partner is not too expressive. This is why my partner is too logical. This is why my partner is too quiet all the time. This is why my partner gets angry very quickly. So when you know the reason behind their behavior, you tend to make peace with it.
Oh, I remember so well having this conversation with you, in the initial years of my marriage and getting to know you, oh, it made such a world of a difference knowing this.
Yeah.
The same points which were like bone of conflict, like the point
Yeah.
of conflict suddenly became like, okay, so this is my strength. This is the strength of the relationship. Okay, this person being like this, my partner being like this, is actually my biggest strength. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
clarity comes by understanding these things. So it
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
world
yeah.
of a
So,
difference.
so I think these are also certain things that young people can go read and research about, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Gee, another major thing that we see on social media is here are 5 red flags to look out for in a relationship. Here are 10 red flags or 2 major red flags you need to avoid. So we need to talk about red flags because that's another thing that young people are struggling with, that they might ignore certain hints and clues in the beginning of the relationship and only when it becomes a red flag. So what I use in my workshops is that when it's a yellow and orange flag, people don't see it, but then it becomes a red flag and a burgundy flag later on, then that's when they get to see it. So how do you see the whole thing about red flags?
My perception of red flags is a little different because I don't see that giving 5 points saying this is a red flag, look out for this, is going to work, because we're all very individual people. Because we come with our own childhood patterns, our, like we spoke about in the previous segment, we have our own we have our own lens of looking at the world based on the kind of childhoods we have had. So me going and giving somebody randomly 7 8 red flags might not be true for that person. So for me it's a very general thing where if you're not able to be yourself, if you're not able to express yourself freely, if you're not able to be your real true self in front of that person, if you have to walk on eggshells just to keep that person happy, if you have to let go of yourself to please another person, then I think these are all the beginnings of a red flag, which is a time for you to sit and think about, is this relationship for me?
Yeah.
So that is my definition of a red flag. And like I said, even to identify red flags for that person, they would have to go through trial and error, right?
Yeah.
Because when I'm in a relationship, I'm also doing inner work, I'm healing. So now what might have seem like a green flag to me 3-4 years back, now is a red flag today.
Because I'm understanding
evolving.
myself better.
I'm evolving with time. And what seems like a green flag today might in a few years, based on my growth, might change.
Absolutely.
So it's about the lens that I'm carrying also. So to give these tips and tricks like
Might not work.
might not work for that individual. Where you are, how you're feeling at that point in time is your red flag then. I
Right.
think you have a lot to share about that,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, one more thing is, G, when people ask about red flags, like you said, no, what do you feel? So when we're talking about that feeling, where do you feel it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually feel it in the pit of our stomach in most cases, which we call gut feeling. We call it intuition or instinct, the Raghavan instinct, whatever. Yeah. So you feel it somewhere in your body. Your body is constantly telling you this is okay, this is not okay, this environment is okay. Now we're sitting in a studio, right? Here it's okay. It's nice to
safe
sit
place.
here.
Yeah.
Now at the same time, I have had the same mics in front of me, same plants around, a different person when I was shooting a different podcast. I have not felt this way. I have felt differently. I felt anxious. I felt
Nervous.
scared. I felt nervous. I felt jittery. I have felt like running away in certain interviews. So, how do you feel? Where do you feel it? What is your body trying to tell you? Communicate. So, that way you can easily understand whether the other person is suitable for you as a partner or as a boyfriend, girlfriend, because the body is very clear about it. It's so good to be with this person. I'm feeling very safe, very nice. Versus, why is this person saying this suddenly? Am I being controlled in this relationship? Why is this person judging every single thing that I'm doing? Why is this person giving so many criticisms, regular? Whatever I do, this person has a problem with it. Or let's say somehow I express some issue of mine and this person is suddenly making it about them. Right, these little things, if you tap into your body is telling you very clearly, okay, beware of this, beware of that, why did that happen, why did they say this, right? But here the problem is, how very well connected are we with our own bodies?
Yeah.
again, thanks to the childhood that we have gone through, wherein in every way we have been disconnected from our body. Don't listen to your body. Go and dance in front of the strangers, or even uncle, auntie. Go sit there on their lap, or go perform this, or stand in a line, or even
Eat, finish the plate.
finish what is there on the plate, or if you don't finish, this will happen, that will happen. So we tend to bypass the bodily signals, and then we eat, or we become emotional eaters at the end of the day, or even in schools, for that matter, you can't go and pee when you want to pee. So you're not listening to your body that time. You can't drink water when you really want to drink water. So in many ways, over a period of time, when we disconnect, then after a point of time, how are you supposed to know what your body is trying to tell you, right?
Especially in puberty. How much of disconnect happens? There's so much of shaming for both the genders.
Yeah.
And that is a crucial time for the human to be in the body, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You're disconnected from your genitals, you're disconnected from your bodily secretions, you feel yucky and disgusted with what is happening in your body, and on top of that, societal expectations of how a woman on periods should behave, and how boys, I mean, nobody even know that boys go through
through so
something
much,
called
no?
puberty.
Who's
Yeah.
talking about
So
it?
nobody's
Yeah.
talking about it. So over a period of time, this disconnect actually carries over into relationships, and then we are not able to understand what the body is trying to tell us.
And then
As simple as that.
suddenly the people in the relationship should know
Yeah,
red
they should
flags
know.
and should
Yeah.
get into the healthy, secure relationship
yeah.
just like that.
For that matter, I love that point that you said, G, which is it's good to have trial and error.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
So-
talking about
so
that. Yeah.
just because you are in a relationship, that doesn't mean that is going to be the
The
relationship that's going to, make things beautiful for you.
Hmm.
That can be the training ground wherein you learn about 10 red flags or 10 issues that you personally have, your insecurities, your inner child wounds.
Yeah,
And then in the next relationship, you might rectify all of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's feedback. No, if I'm in a relationship, say, let's leave relationships, even in a friendship, you are giving me feedback about, no, that didn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
That behavior of yours is irritating. This is not okay. So that is me having space to grow, to evolve.
Yeah. So, but then it's all accepted in friendship and other relationships.
Yeah. That way, yes.
When it comes to romantic relationship, it's just one
தெய்வீக காதல்.
soulmate.
Yeah.
Yeah. மனிதர் உணர்ந்து கொள்ள இது மனித காதல் அல்ல kind of relationship. Only everybody is expecting this
The
should
beginning, in the first.
yeah, this should be the relationship, or this is the soulmate. She is the one. He is Mr. Right. That should definitely break. It's not like that. And I think our old films and all had a huge impact. கல்யாணம்னா ஒரு தடவை தான் இருக்கணும், or காதல்னா ஒரே ஒரு தடவை தான் காதல் எல்லாம் உணரணும், அந்த மாதிரியான crappy ideologies. Yeah, talking about kalyanam, marriage. Again, another big issue that youngsters come up with is my parents are not allowing me to get married to this person.
I like.
Yeah? Stating these reasons, or they're saying that I'm no longer their child hereafter if I go and get married to this person. So how do you see this whole hangama around marriages and parents' approval, and the whole fights and arguments that happens in a young person's life when it comes to wanting to marry the love of their life?
அந்த மாதிரி தான் இருக்கு, really. Because I was that person, and now I'm able to see better, no? Because I have children of my own. My perception itself has gone like 180-degree shift only.
Yeah. Okay, then tell me, why are parents behaving like that?
Because I think they have not grown up. Really, they're not able to see that a child is an individual who is making a choice in their life. Somehow in our generation, parents thought that we are extensions of them, and how we choose our life, how we choose to live our life is a reflection of their parenting. So if I get into an arranged marriage, they are good parents. If I go against the norms and have a love marriage or in a different caste or a different religion, somebody very different, then they are a failure as parents. So then, we are the report cards. Our marriage were the report cards for their parenting. How unfair is that? That's like, exactly the similar mirror of that is a child's empty plate being an indicator of the child being the parent being a good parent. If you finish eating, I'm a good parent. From that level, look how blown up our perceptions are.
Yeah.
And imagine the person going through that. Like if you are the child, how does that feel like? So you tell me what you think parents behave
Parents,
in
as you said, they are children in adult bodies and they are throwing major tantrums.
tantrums.
So I think
Oh, this tantrum of I will
die.
If you marry this person, I'll die.
தூக்கில் தொங்கிருவேன்
Yeah.
மண்ணெண்ணை ஊத்தி கொளுத்திடுவேன் and all of that. Yeah. So yeah, it actually gives a perspective shift when you call parents arguments and fights as tantrums.
Tantrums.
Right?
Yeah.
So they are tantruming. Right. Whereas only children tantrum. Right. Adults can always have a healthy conversation. They can have a nice conversation where they talk about the pros and cons and
Their worries.
my their fears,
fears.
all that they can actually sit and talk, and we are also willing to talk, but then they are not getting it to that level because the only way of conflict resolution they know is to throw these tantrums. So
Ultimatums.
yeah. So I think this is a beautiful opportunity for a young adult to understand boundaries and autonomy. So I am an adult. I am capable of taking my own decisions. I'm an autonomous human being. I can be responsible for the decisions that I take. That's another reason why I think a lot of youngsters wait for parents' approval.
Yeah.
Because what if something
Thing goes wrong.
happens?
That
What-
accountability.
Yeah. So if my parents are also on board, then they will also take accountability. No, அவங்க தலை மேல தூக்கி போட்டுறலாம்ல. So that kind of a thing should go away. You need to bloody own up for your decisions, and you need to tell yourself that no matter what comes, I will stand up for myself, and I will fight. Yeah, fight in the sense not literally like fight like cats and dogs, but fight like a healthy human being. So that level of responsibility also should, I think, come up on that individual. So it's a great opportunity to learn about boundaries and autonomy. I think, yeah.
Speaking, when you were saying this, I was thinking like, oh my God, now people are going to say that Swati is encouraging people to elope and make their own decisions and all that.
Yeah, they
but
want
you
to,
know,
they
if they want to, they can. But the second thought that came was, just because you don't do it and you go by your parents' way. You listen to them do it their way doesn't mean that your life is going to be smooth and easy.
Yeah.
So that is also something that we need to stress upon. Like what like how parents ask, what is the guarantee that the person that you loved, if you're going to get into a love marriage, what is the guarantee that it's going to be a good life? The similar way, we actually today we can ask our parents, what guarantee do you give me that the life that you chose for me is going to be good? Because
Exactly.
we can't. Nobody can do. So, like you say, Adhika, I was thinking, like you say, people can do what they want, and then at least at the end of the day, they'll feel like, okay, this is my decision. Right or wrong, it is my decision. It is my life. I'm being the driver of the bus of my life.
Yeah. From childhood, have we been allowed to take our own decisions is a big question, because when a person lives their whole entire life not being autonomous, always dependent on the parent for even little decisions, then suddenly a big decision of choosing one's life partner, how can they take it? How will they get to a point where they can 100% confidently tell themselves and the world that no matter what happens, I will
Stand
do
by
it?
this, yeah.
I think that is very difficult for a child that has always been suppressed and put down by the parent, always critiquing whatever the child does. I think for that kind of an individual, it's going to be super hard to take that decision.
Yes. Only that other person should be so big and so
Their energy should be
so huge
good
that
and
they have to override all of that.
Yeah. So what is your suggestion to youngsters who ask me these questions? Of course, we have given them a lot of suggestions, but is there anything, any concluding message that you wish to tell young people that are waiting to get married?
Yeah. I think you start making these small decisions. Yeah, start making these small decisions about your career, about your place of stay, about the kind of friends that you have. Start small, start there, and then you will feel confident in yourself to take these big decisions. And I think the message I want to say is, irrespective of the kind of marriage, love or arranged, the challenge is still the same. It doesn't matter.
About which we will do an entire 4-episode series about.
Yeah, it should be a Netflix series. Challenges in marriage or relationship, for that matter.
Love after marriage. Yeah, we should
It's
do
so
one.
delusional. We think that after, once you get into a marriage, it's going to be like happily ever after. It's not like that. So,
I think, G, one thing I would say in my usual sarcastic tone is, if your parents won't allow you to get married to somebody, please don't choose your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the most straightforward answer that you can give, no? Why are you choosing your partner when you're 100% sure that your parent is
want
not?
to love.
So something came up from within you which made you fall in love with somebody else. What was that? If that was not the parent's voice, that was your own voice, no?
Voice, no? You like somebody.
Yeah.
You invested some time in that relationship.
Yeah, which means there is a voice sitting inside you which wants to do things there in their way, in that person's way. So there is that inner you, your inner voice is still there, asking you to love a certain person or go for a certain job or be with a certain friend or hang out in a certain place or not go to a certain party or feel guilty after doing something. There is that voice inside you which is guiding you. So then you need to depend on that to take a decision instead of suddenly you will fall in love and then go all the way and finally suddenly when you want to get married, oh, then suddenly parents have to agree. See, there's nothing wrong in waiting for parents' approval, but how long? How long will you wait for their approval? So at some point of time, you need to do adulting.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. So adulting is so
There's
hard.
always, this Cinderella story where women keep waiting for things to fall into place. Somebody will come, they will do this, and we'll get beautiful clothes, and the prince will come with the shoe and it'll fit. And
இதெல்லாம் படிச்சு தான் நம்மளுக்கு எடுத்து குட்டிச்சோறாக்கியிருக்காங்க.
yeah, really. Because, in many instances, not just in marriage, like normal functional things, even to go buy grocery, I'm waiting. I was waiting. At least for a beginning of my 20s, I was waiting for things to happen, for things to fall into place, and I'll just be this princess. But it's not like that. So that's a big message that I want to tell people who are listening, that nobody's coming to save you. It's you. Even if you're making certain choices, it doesn't mean that it's going to be happily ever after.
Yeah.
Work happens throughout life.
Absolutely, yeah. And as we told in the previous segment also, this is also trial and error.
Yeah.
So you are learning about boundaries, you're learning about autonomy, you're learning about decision making, you're learning about taking ownership, taking responsibility, standing up for yourself. And you're showing the world that you are an individual.
Yeah.
Right. I can take my own decision. And my life partner, my mate, I'm going to choose my mate.
Yep.
Right? Which is a very strong decision that you'll. And I think if they are strong enough to take the decision, in future, they will be able to take more decisions by themselves.
Yes.
Because these people that are going to interfere all the time.
Even if you have an arranged marriage, these people are going to have so much to say.
Definitely. You know what name you need to put for your child, which hospital you need to go for your delivery.
When you should have the child. How many children you should
many
have.
children you need to have. Yeah. So which
Everybody has
school
an
you need to put
opinion.
your child. So that interference is always going to be there. I know of so many couples because of my lactation practice. During the naming ceremony, there's a lot of fights. Yeah. The spelling of the name included, there are so many problems. So if you take that autonomous decision, at least with regard to your life partner, I think, I won't tell you life is going to be smooth. It's never smooth. But at every other stage, you will be that autonomous individual. Yeah. So I think that was a beautiful discussion, G. Thank you so much. I think the youngsters hearing would have got beautiful insights about taking decisions when it comes to choosing your life partner, getting married to your boyfriend/girlfriend. And I think you will look into these points that we mentioned and do a little bit of homework and prepare yourself to get into this huge journey of being married and having children and raising a family and all of that. Yeah. So thank you so much, G, once
Thank
again
you.
for a beautiful episode. I will see you all in the next episode where we again talk about interesting topics. I think we have to talk about our parenting journey a bit.
Sometime, yes.
Some of the blunders and mistakes we've done.
Yes,
I think that
absolutely.
is very important to
Yeah,
talk about because people think we are
Perfect.
yeah, so we are going to have an episode where we are going to prove that there's a lot of imperfections in our own parenting journey. I think we'll come up with that very soon. Until then, I'm sending you all lots of love, lots of healing vibes and healing energy from our end. Bye bye.
Bye.